Hi, my name is Greg Van Slyke from JW Speaker. I'm here to show you how to install your Ducati Monster 8693 adaptive kit on your bike. So the Ducati Monster kit is going to include the 8693 lamp, a wire harness, lower bracket, upper bracket, which will also mount to the gauge cluster, grommets, 5 short Allen bolts, 2 long Allen bolts, washers, 2 regular nuts, 4 nylock nuts, and bushings. You'll need to get the following tools: a 4mm Allen wrench, a T10 Torx wrench, a T20 Torx wrench, a deep socket 10mm ratchet, a 10mm wrench, and also blue Loctite. The first step in removing the stock headlight assembly is locating 2 lower nuts. These will have to be loosened. You do not have to fully remove them. Next thing you need to do is remove the gauge cluster cover or the windshield, depending on what your model is equipped with. For the windshield, there'll be 4 bolts on the side. For the cover, there are 2 bolts that are a T10. So you're going to find those in here. Loosen these up, then the cover will come right off. Next thing is you will have to remove the harness from the gauge cluster. You're going to press on this tab here and release it like this. You can feed it through the back side and leave it like that. All right, the next step is going to be to remove the lamp itself. What you're going to want to do is apply pressure upwards and wiggle it back and forth. Once you get it out, you're going to be pulling these posts out of these grommets here. For instance, this one popped out. Not a big deal. You can just pop them back in. Next thing is the nut that you had loosened on this side. Just use your fingers, pop it off, and then you'll have access to this harness here. What you're going to want to do is press the little tab in here, or pull on it, I should say, and this will pop right out. Once you've done that, the whole assembly is off. Next step is you're going to take your T20 wrench and remove these 4 bolts from the bracket to release the gauge cluster. And set these bolts aside because you will reuse them. All right, next we're going to install the brackets onto the new 8693. I would leave the blue film that it comes with on during the install process. That's going to protect the lens and the housing from scratches during the install process. Next step, set that aside, is we're going to get the lower bracket assembled. So if you see with this bracket, it's got a curvature to it. The way it curves inward, we're going to bolt in these Allen bolts going this way. First step is you're going to take the 2 grommets and you're going to install them into these slots here. After you have your grommets installed, you're going to install the bushings. You're going to put these on each side. Okay, next step, you are going to grab your long Allen bolt. Now, if you see the way this bracket curves, to the right, you're going to have the bolts coming from the inside of that curve outwards. Next, you're going to grab your nylock nut, get that threaded, and then grab your 4mm Allen wrench and your deep socket ratchet and tighten this until it is snug. And then you can see, nice and snug without squishing the grommet too much. All right, once you have both your Allen bolts secured into the lower bracket, you're going to now install this onto the lamp. What I like to do is take 1 square of bubble wrap from the packaging that the lamp came in, set that down on your workbench, then set the lamp face down on there. The bracket is going to secure with 3 bolts right at this lower spot here. To secure it, you're going to need 3 of your short Allen bolts and 3 washers. We recommend putting blue Loctite on these to ensure that they will not loosen over time. Okay, next, you're going to need your 4mm Allen wrench. So you'll hold the bracket in place. And secure your bolts. Once you have them snug, I like to give it a half turn, get them nice and tight in there. And your lower bracket is installed. All right, next step is we're going to attach the gauge cluster to the upper bracket. You're going to reuse the T20 bolts you had removed from the gauge cluster to take it off the bike. First, flip the gauge cluster over, line up the bracket with the 4 holes, and get your 4 bolts started. Make sure not to over tighten these because these are just threading into plastic. They just need to be snug. You can see, now it's secured in the 4 spots. All right, next we are going to mount the upper bracket to the lamp itself. So first, you'll set that aside. You're going to need 2 of your short Allen bolts and 2 washers. Once again, we're going to put some Loctite on these bolts to ensure they do not loosen. All right, so you're going to line up these 2 upper holes on the top of the lamp and use your 4mm Allen wrench to tighten the bolts in. And it's on. Next, you're going to thread on a nut on each of these posts. You want to get it about a little past halfway. Next, you're going to drop 2 washers on each post. And take your nylock nuts and just thread them till they're snug on the end of the posts. Next, you're going to take your harness that came with the lamp, line that up and snap that into place, and now you're ready to install the lamp. All right, first step in installing the lamp is you're going to take the harness that came with the kit, snap that into the back of the lamp, and then the next thing you're going to want to do is feed the gauge cluster harness through the opening here. Next, you're going to take these posts and slide them into the grommets on top while having your posts at the bottom go into the slots on the lower triple. When installing the lamp, you want to make sure that these Allen bolts go into these lower slots. And you want to make sure that these slots are sandwiched by a washer on each side. What I like to do is hold the washers back like this with my hands, get them lined up, and then insert the top and push down with my fingers on these bolts like so. Next step, you want to make sure your wire harness is not sticking out. You can stuff that in the back there. Plug in your gauge cluster. Next, you're going to reinstall either your windscreen or cover. They are going to install the same way as the stock bracket. So for the cover, snap it into place, and then with your T10, rethread in your bolts. This is one of the reasons I leave the film on, just in case the Allen wrench were to scratch the lens. All right, the next step is going to be aiming your headlamp. These instructions can be found at the JW Speaker website. What I'm going to do is show you how this headlamp bracket aims. So right now, the lamp has the ability to angle up and down. The inside nut is going to be your set nut. So once you determine which angle the headlamp needs to be at, you thread this nut down, and that holds it in place. Your next step is to take a 10mm wrench, hold that nut in place, and then take your 10mm socket and ratchet and tighten it in place. And this needs to be done on the other side as well. Usually you can aim with just one side, get that in place, and then match the other side.